The auctioneer almost skipped the lot. The little black calf stood alone in the corner of the sale pen. Thin, mud-stained, small enough to look 6 weeks younger than the calves beside him. He lowered his head as buyers walked past without slowing down. The auctioneer tapped the microphone. Lot 73. Silence. $35? Nobody answered. Another pause. The auctioneer sighed. Anybody? Margaret Hale raised one hand. I'll take him. The auctioneer looked relieved. Sold. His gavel struck the rail. $35. That was it. The cheapest calf sold all afternoon. As the crowd moved toward the next pen, Dale Harper laughed from the front row. You just bought yourself a pet. Several buyers chuckled. Margaret simply smiled. Maybe, or maybe not. The little calf quietly followed the handler toward the loading area. He never pulled against the lead rope. Never fought. Never panicked. Margaret noticed. Most people noticed only his size. She noticed everything else. The Hale farm stretched across 140 acres of rolling pasture outside Cedar Ridge. Margaret raised registered Black Angus cattle using methods her grandfather Samuel had trusted for decades. No shortcuts. No chasing fads. Only careful breeding, healthy grass, and patience. Samuel believed auctions revealed more about people than cattle. One autumn afternoon when Margaret was 15, they attended the same auction barn together. A flashy young bull sold for record money. Everyone applauded. Samuel never raised his bidder card. Instead, he watched an overlooked heifer leave the ring nearly unnoticed. Margaret frowned. Why didn't you buy the expensive one? Samuel smiled. Everybody wanted him. Silence. So, I'd rather buy what everyone overlooked. She looked back toward the quiet heifer. Why? Samuel folded his sale catalog. The crowd usually pays for appearances. Long pause. I'd rather pay for potential. Years later, those words echoed inside Margaret's mind as she drove home with the little black calf in the trailer. Nathan Hale met her at the barn. He lowered the trailer gate, then stopped. That's him. Margaret nodded. The $35 calf. Nathan stared. He's tiny. I know. Silence. Think he'll make it. Margaret watched the calf carefully step into fresh straw. I think he deserves the chance. The veterinarian examined him the next morning. Healthy. Surprisingly healthy. Just underdeveloped. Probably weaned too early. Likely overlooked after that. Nothing suggested poor genetics. Only poor timing. The veterinarian scratched the calf's neck. Interesting. Margaret folded her arms. What? He isn't weak. Silence. Just behind. Margaret smiled. Good. He nodded. Very. The calf settled quickly. Unlike many auction calves, he never paced fences. Never fought other animals. Never wasted energy. He simply ate. Rested. Grew. Margaret named him Ledger. Nathan laughed. For a calf. Margaret smiled. He'll either cost me money. Long pause. Or balance the books. Nathan shook his head. You always name them strangely. The county learned about Ledger almost immediately. Naturally. One Saturday morning Dale Harper leaned against the diner counter. So, Rick looked up. What now? Margaret bought the cheapest calf at the auction. Several farmers laughed. For $35? Dale nodded. Nobody even wanted him. Another rancher smiled. Maybe she felt sorry for him. Margaret happened to walk inside. Dale waved. Morning. Morning. He sipped his coffee. So how's your bargain bull? Margaret smiled. Growing. Long pause. Worth $35 yet? I don't know. We'll find out. Nobody argued. Nobody needed to. Most assumed they already knew how the story would end. Ledger grew steadily. Not rapidly. Steadily. Every month his frame became more balanced. His shoulders widened. His legs remained perfectly straight. His feet impressed the veterinarian again. One spring afternoon, he watched Ledger walking across the pasture. Then stopped writing. Margaret noticed. What? The veterinarian pointed toward the bull. Watch him. She did. Ledger moved smoothly. Effortlessly. Every stride looked efficient. Balanced. Strong. Finally, the veterinarian smiled. Excellent structure. Margaret looked relieved. That's good. He nodded. Very. Nathan grinned. I've heard that before. So have I. The following autumn Margaret entered Ledger in the county's young bull evaluation. Not to win. To learn. The competition looked intimidating. Massive bulls from respected breeding programs filled every pen. Ledger remained noticeably smaller. Several ranchers smiled politely when they saw him. Dale walked over carrying coffee. You brought him. Margaret nodded. Yes. Long pause. Still think he's special? I think we'll learn something. Judging lasted most of the day. Feet, legs, muscling, disposition, movement. Everything received careful evaluation. When Ledger entered the ring, the judges immediately paid attention. One judge stepped closer. Another circled him twice. The third quietly wrote notes without speaking. Nathan leaned toward Margaret. They're looking a while. She nodded. I noticed. Ledger walked calmly. Stopped exactly when asked. Never tossed his head. Never became nervous. Children leaned against the fence nearby. Ledger ignored the noise completely. The senior judge finally approached Margaret. Where'd this bull come from? She smiled. Local auction. Silence. He cost $35. The judge looked surprised. He shouldn't have. Results arrived 2 weeks later. Ledger didn't finish first overall, but he received the highest structural score in the entire evaluation. Perfect feet. Outstanding movement. Exceptional disposition. The judge's comments filled nearly an entire page. One sentence stood out. Recommended for long-term breeding based on structural longevity. Nathan read it twice, then smiled. They saw it too. Margaret nodded. They did. Still, good evaluations didn't guarantee good offspring. Breeding season would answer that question. Margaret selected only 18 cows. Carefully chosen females known for fertility, sound udders, and calm temperaments. She wasn't chasing numbers. She wanted proof. Dale heard about the breeding plans while waiting in line at the feed mill. 18 cows. He laughed. You're putting a lot of faith in a bargain bull. Margaret smiled. I suppose I am. He shook his head. Hope you're right. So do I. The first calves arrived nearly a year later. Nathan noticed something unusual immediately. They're all standing quickly. Margaret looked up. He was right. Every calf rose within minutes. Strong. Alert. Ready to nurse. The veterinarian visited during calving season. After examining several newborn calves, he stopped beside Margaret. You've got something interesting here. She folded her arms. What? He smiled. The calves all carry the same balance. Silence. Same feet. Same shoulders. Same temperament. He looked back toward Ledger, quietly watching the pasture from a nearby hill. Then added one final sentence. If the next calf crop looks like this one. He paused. People are going to start asking where that $35 bull came from. The veterinarian's prediction proved accurate. The second calf crop looked even better than the first. Strong feet. Wide hips. Balanced shoulders. Calm dispositions. No difficult births. No structural surprises. Everything looked remarkably consistent. One afternoon, the veterinarian leaned against the pasture fence watching Ledger's calves grazing. He shook his head slowly. I've seen expensive herd sires do less. Margaret smiled. So have I. Word spread quietly. Not because Margaret advertised. Because ranchers noticed. Neighbors driving past the Hale farm often slowed to study the calf crop. Commercial buyers asked questions. Replacement heifer buyers started requesting daughters specifically sired by Ledger. The first inquiry came from a ranch 40 miles away. A breeder walked through the pasture for nearly an hour. He hardly spoke. He simply watched. Finally, he turned toward Margaret. Would you sell breeding rights? She smiled. Not yet. The man nodded. I figured. Before leaving, he handed her a business card. When you're ready. He paused. Call me. Within months, 2 more breeders asked the same question. Then 4. Then 7. Nathan laughed one evening while sorting the mail. You've got another one. Margaret looked up. What? A breeding inquiry. She smiled. They're starting. Nathan grinned. I think they already started. Instead of rushing to sell, Margaret waited. Samuel's notebooks often warned against making decisions too early. One sentence had been underlined 3 different times. 1 good calf proves nothing. 3 good calf crops prove a bloodline. Margaret followed that advice. She bred Ledger again. Then again. Every season confirmed the same pattern. The calves remained consistent. No flashy giants. No extreme animals. Just cattle built to last. Balanced. Functional. Quiet. Exactly the kind commercial ranchers wanted. Then came the county's annual breeding stock showcase. Unlike the young bull evaluation, this event judged offspring. Entire sire groups competed together. Ledger's first daughters entered the ring. Several local ranchers gathered along the fence. Dale Harper stood beside Nathan. So, Nathan smiled. So, we'll finally see. The classes began. Ledger's daughters walked calmly into the arena. Uniform. Correct. Balanced. The judges immediately noticed. One leaned toward another. They quietly discussed structure while the cattle circled the ring. When the placings were announced, Ledger's daughters won their class. The next class featured his sons. Again, first place. By afternoon, the championship drive included multiple offspring from the same bargain bull. The announcer read the final results. Champion female. Ledger daughter. Reserve champion bull. Ledger son. Best sire group. Ledger offspring. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Nathan looked toward Margaret. They're doing it. She nodded quietly. No. What? They're proving it. The following morning, the local newspaper carried a photograph of Margaret standing beside the winning heifer. The headline surprised everyone. $35 bull sires champion offspring. The story traveled quickly. Agricultural magazines picked it up. Regional breeders requested interviews. One reporter asked the question everyone seemed curious about. When did you know Ledger would become special? Margaret smiled. I didn't. The reporter looked puzzled. You entered him in breeding. Yes. Weren't you confident? She shook her head. I was hopeful. Long pause. The calves answered the question. Demand exploded after that article. Commercial cattlemen wanted Ledger sons. Purebred breeders wanted daughters. Artificial insemination companies requested performance records. Waiting lists formed. Nathan walked into the office carrying another stack of letters. You've got another problem. Margaret laughed. What? Too many customers. 3 years after Ledger first entered service, a respected state livestock exposition invited Margaret to compete. This wasn't a county fair. It was one of the largest breeding shows in the region. Winning there meant something. The competition looked intimidating. National bloodlines. Famous ranches. Professional fitting crews. Margaret unloaded her cattle herself. Exactly as always. Ledger stayed home. Older now. Content to graze his pasture. His daughters would represent him. Dale found Margaret brushing one of the heifers before judging. You nervous? Margaret smiled. A little. He laughed. I remember when I called him your bargain bull. I remember too. Silence. I've been wrong before. Margaret grinned. Not this wrong. Judging lasted nearly all day. The quality amazed everyone. Outstanding cattle filled every class. When the championship drive began, one detail became obvious. Ledger's daughters kept advancing, one by one, until only 2 animals remained. The judge walked slowly around both heifers, studied their feet, their movement, their balance. Several minutes passed. Finally, he stepped to the microphone. The grand champion female. Long pause. Is entry number 47. Margaret closed her eyes briefly. 47. Her heifer. Applause erupted across the arena. Nathan hugged her before she even reached the ring. Reporters gathered almost immediately. The chief judge later explained his decision. This female combines everything we want. He smiled. Structure. Femininity. Longevity. She'll still be productive years from now. Those words sounded strangely familiar, because they echoed Samuel's old notebooks almost exactly. The victory transformed Ledger's reputation overnight. Breeders who once ignored the $35 calf now competed to purchase his offspring. His son sold quickly. His daughters became foundation females in respected herds. Artificial insemination companies finally reached agreements with Margaret. Still, she remained selective. Quality came before quantity. 3 years later, another remarkable moment arrived. One of Ledger's granddaughters entered the same state livestock exposition. Different owner. Different ranch. Same bloodline. The championship drive looked just as competitive. The judge announced the winner. Grand champion. Again, Ledger's bloodline had done it twice. The audience erupted. Several older breeders simply shook their heads. One whispered. It all started with that auction calf. Back home, Dale stood beside Margaret watching Ledger graze beneath a large oak tree. The old bull had silver around his muzzle now. His pace had slowed, but his calm presence remained unchanged. Dale folded his arms. You know what still bothers me? Margaret smiled. What? I laughed when you spent $35. Yes. I thought you bought the worst calf in the sale. She looked toward Ledger. So did most people. Dale nodded. I wasn't looking close enough. The evening sun stretched long shadows across the pasture. Dozens of daughters and granddaughters grazed peacefully nearby. Strong, balanced, healthy, living proof of one quiet decision made years earlier. Margaret remembered something Samuel once told her after that auction long ago. She smiled. You know what Grandpa always believed? Dale looked over. What? The sale ring only measures today's opinion. Silence. It never measures tomorrow's potential. The breeze drifted gently through the pasture. Years earlier, buyers had walked past one undersized black calf without slowing down. They saw a bargain nobody wanted, an animal too plain to notice. Margaret saw straight legs, quiet eyes, a balanced stride, and a chance worth taking. She never bought Ledger expecting fame. She never imagined his offspring would dominate the show ring. She simply trusted that lasting value often hides beneath ordinary appearances. By the time Ledger's Bloodline claimed its second Grand Champion title, the cheapest calf sold that afternoon had become one of the most respected foundation sires in the region. Not because he cost the most, but because someone looked beyond the auction price and saw the future walking quietly through the ring.